Hey guys, welcome to Strength Solutions Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate, review us. Check us out on YouTube. Hit the subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. Free blogs, free guides, and programs for purchase. Strength Solutions Podcast for email at gmail.com. Then social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Okay, dude. You have a problem.
Uh-oh.
So, you know, everybody in the fitness industry creates these videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave one of my clients a behind the neck press.
Okay.
A twisted Bulgarian split squat.
Yeah.
Different movements. And he was like, Edwin, I have a question. Why are you giving me exercises that are very controversial?
Mm.
And I was like, dude, you want to be honest with you?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I don't give a fuck what social media thinks.
Yeah.
And second is your body is meant to do all these movements. What happens is either you don't have the range of motion, the risk versus reward is not worth it, or you don't have the load tolerance. And social media will make it seem like I do this glute exercise, this glute exercise, this glute exercise, it's going to build my glute. What it's actually to take is those exercises plus nutrition, plus sleep, and plus stress management. And I think we forget the complexities of the fitness and health industries, and we try to think it's just this one thing. So I'll give you another example.
Go.
Recently, read an article about Ozempic and people losing intimacy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And people are talking about, you know, I'm just not as intimate with a partner. I don't want to be. I think it's just the drug Ozempic. Literally. Okay. All because you take a drug does not mean your intimacy goes down. What happens with Ozempic and GLP-1 is you're not eating. When you're not eating, well, your body and mind know there's not enough food around. Evolutionary wise, what's going to happen is your body's going to tell you, I don't want to have sex. I don't want to ovulate. I don't want to have a child in this scarce food environment.
Yeah.
And that's where the complexity comes. It's not the drug itself. And also, what dosage are you taking? Are you taking more of a microdose, which is maybe like a 5 versus a 25, and it'll help with the cravings, but you're still able to eat and work out and develop good habits. So how you use the drug matters too as well.
I would argue as well that with the Ozempic, adding in like not eating and then losing muscle mass, you're going to produce less testosterone, right? So your sex drive is going to be lower. You're going to be less energetic, all of those things too. And then going back to what you were saying earlier about like the exercises and things like that, I've seen people who are like, if your body moves a certain way, you should be able to do that thing, right? Like there's a guy that I follow. I think his name was Move with David or something like that. He's like a flexibility guy. But I do like some of the stuff that he does, because he'll be like, you know, I squat with my foot like totally inverted, right? And I'll practice just a body weight squat doing that, so that if I ever were to like roll my ankle or something like that, I know I have that load tolerance and I'm essentially protecting my body, right? Now, if you were to go to anybody else and show them like, hey, we're going to squat on the sides of our feet, they'd be like, you're a fucking idiot, right? Like, you don't know what you're talking about, or I'm going to injure myself or whatever it is. But like you said, it's all about the risk to reward, about your goals. Is it worth it? Do you have the load tolerance? And all of those things. And so I agree with you, man. There's so much. I mean, I know we say this all the time, and it should be like our tag phrase or something. There's like so much nuance, right? And everything depends. And it's just too hard to simplify it to the level that some of these people will to do it at. You know what I mean? Today, also, I saw a post from, I think his name is like Danny Mantra or something like that. Yeah. And he said there's a difference between fitness professionals who are fitness influencers and fitness professionals that use social media, right? There's a difference between those two types of things. And I think sometimes we get swept up with like the influencer type thing, as opposed to just the professionals who are using social media to give information or talk about things like, you know, kind of like how we do.
Yeah, everything's more complex. I mean, I could go to a janitor. I always tell people this one janitor is a really good janitor because he understands how his chemicals work with whatever material he's using to get that stain off, versus another person who doesn't understand the science and oh, you just use this, and they just use baking soda every time.
Right.
Oh, it clears everything. Windex, just put Windex on there.
Well, hold on. I'm going to defend that one, bro. Windex can do anything, dude. Just
fix my eye.
Windex and Vicks. That's all you need.
So I want to go in this one. I know I sent you the Instagram. I think his name's Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally was, it's in the Bible to make your kids fear your parents. And that's how you know you're raising good kids. And I'm thinking to myself, this motherfucker probably does not have kids. And two,
or his kids probably hate him.
The fact that you think fear is what develops people.
Right.
When Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing you need is safety and security. Interesting, right?
I agree. Yeah. And I think that he was saying that, I guess, and I'm probably
it's biblical.
I'm going to quote this wrong. Right.
Yeah.
But he was essentially getting to the idea that if you don't like fear your earthly parents, right, then you therefore cannot like serve God, because let's be real, right? A lot of religion is like fear based, right? To try and keep people in line or do what needs to be done.
Let's rephrase that. I want to say a lot.
Okay.
I would say people are the problem. The religion's not the problem, and the fear base of it.
Yes. Fair.
And I would say people use fear to develop that their religion's correct.
Yeah, okay. That is a very good way of putting it. Yeah. Because I guess if you were to look into the Bible, there's no part that says like, this
fear
is
the wrath of God.
Shit. Yeah. Well, I think it might actually say that. It probably says that in terms of like evil, right? Or something like that. But yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny because talking about like parenting and things like that, or even coaching, right? And teaching kind of how you and I do, I find that I get more out of I don't want to say a gentle approach, right? But like a softer approach maybe than I do out of just coming out and fucking yelling and shit like that, right? Because I kind of had two extremes growing up. I had my mom who was super, super strict and religious also. And then I had my dad who was a little more lenient and kind of just like, whatever, And I could see the detriments to both of them, It was really hard when we were younger for like my brother to, I don't want to say respect my dad, but like to see him as like that like strong parenting figure because of the leniency. And then with my mom, it was like we just were like walking on eggshells and super scared all the time and didn't really develop like a relationship.
You don't want to tell him anything.
You won't fucking tell him anything, right? And so, with my daughter now, I find that I don't want to make her scared of me, but I want her to follow me, right? Like listen to me. Like I'm trying to be more of a leadership model.
You want to create a safe and secure space where they could come tell you things, but also be respected at the same time.
Yeah, it's about respect, right? It shouldn't be about fear. It should be about respect, and a mutual respect at that, I think, needs to be developed, because I know a lot of parents or older people like essentially look at children as like I don't want to say an object, but that they don't have any like right. And I think to an extent, kids shouldn't be making decisions for the family or anything like that. But they're also like people to an extent, especially at the ages your kids are or the ages my kids are. Like I can't just go around and like fucking shove them around and do whatever I want. Like they have thoughts and things like that I at least want to respect in some way, Yeah.
And that video that I showed you is the same guy who doesn't understand how DEI works.
Oh, no.
Because there's a video of him talking about, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to have to like second guess it.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking like, you don't really realize that you're subconsciously racist.
Hell yeah.
Right? Because they have to pass the same test.
Yeah,
It's not like they're giving different tests.
Yeah, like, this is the black pilot test.
The only people who get different tests are people who have special accommodations because of DEI. And those are kids that are on a spectrum and things like that. Yeah. They get special testing.
But even then, it's like...
But they're not going to put a pilot or a doctor who doesn't pass a standardized test that they want.
Right.
Or go through... It's not like they're doing less residency hours, less whatever. That does not mean that's DEI. DEI is something else.
Yeah. And I think also if you were to argue something like... I don't know, like, oh, well, they probably just didn't try hard enough, or they got through by cheating or something like that. That's like the subconscious, like racism, right?
Yeah. And it's like the people complained that there was no DEI during this halftime show because there was nothing but black dancers.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It didn't.
Where's my representation?
It works both ways, right? Like
yes.
If you're going to remove one thing, it's probably going to remove something else. And then and right, yeah, because then they're like, oh well, we need to be represented too, blah blah, blah. And it's like, like, and so now
it's funny how it just, it's just people don't understand the law, and DI is neither good nor bad. There could be refinement to it, right?
Sure.
And I think just ripping something off doesn't mean it's going to fix it.
Yeah,
because all you're doing is ripping off a Band-Aid and putting another Band-Aid on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that I would go into politically right now, but I'm not.
That's on the Patreon.
It's just the one thing I want to tell people is be careful of idolizing false gods.
Yeah, I agree,
right?
man.
And I think that's kind of where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, we need a Patreon where we just like are super unhinged. We should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it like. Yeah. And like I tell my clients, I hate both sides.
Sure.
Equally.
And they, you know what? They also hate you.
Yes. Yes. And the problem with society too is it's a money capitalism thing. So I read a cool like quote, and there was a guy talking about how people believe these ideas should last forever, and we're in moments of time. So for example, it's capitalism right now. It was feudalism before. It was monarchy before. It was communist before, right? They would believe these concepts should hold forever. When things change and people change and the development of society change. Yeah. And I think we're in that period that capitalism needs to change. I don't know what to. Yeah. But obviously private equity is not creating the best product anymore.
It's also funny. So I'm going to make a weird comparison here, but I'm going to talk about music for a second real quick. So with music, especially in like the genre that I listen to, and maybe even other genres as well, I've noticed at least that there hasn't been any like innovation in a long time, right? Like since, the 80s or 90s, like genres of music.
Whoa. Get into the 2000s, at least early 2000s.
Early 2000s, I'll say that too. Yeah.
My music. Okay. Then, yeah. I mean, look at the popular songs. They're all like 90s bass.
You're right. And, if you go to the clubs, they're still playing old ass music. And, you could argue like, oh, it's just millennials and they don't want to change or whatever. But it's like, in the world of like heavy metal and things like that, I listen to it a lot. And I'm like, wow, every band is very similar. They're all kind of doing the same thing. It's all sort of the same product packaged a little bit of a different way. And there's been no innovation. And I think now my comparison comes back to the political aspect that we're talking about, or more like government aspect, is that there hasn't been any innovation in how to run a country in a long time, right? Like you named pretty much all of them, right? Capitalism, oligarchy, monarchy, communism, socialism, dictatorship, I guess, right? And then it's like, maybe there's more, I don't know. But I'm like, why haven't we had any innovation as time has changed, as communities have changed, cultures, mindsets, people, right? It's like, you keep cycling through the same things and they all keep failing. So clearly there's a problem, and something needs to be changed or invented or combined, I don't know, in some way to create a better way to organize people.
My idea is combined.
Yeah.
And another thing, like this is why capitalism also doesn't work. You sent me something about publishers receive all the money for studies.
Yeah.
100%. So if you pay $35, that $35 goes to the publisher versus the people who
authors
worked on the studies.
Yeah.
So people are not getting paid for their own work because it's about a money grab. And that publisher or the person who's publishing the study doesn't have time to do the publishing phase. Not saying the publisher shouldn't get money, but they should take it back down to the person who actually created the study.
Some sort of percentage, right? And I sent it to you because we both use articles and things like that. And I was like, man, maybe we should just like fucking start emailing these people and just be like, hey, can we get the whole thing and read it all? Or maybe they have like some simplified version, right? That is easier to understand that we can give to people. Or maybe they would be fine if we placed it on our website or something. But it is insane, dude, that they don't get any money. Like that's crazy. It goes back to like sort of like the music industry too. Like people are just getting ripped off. And it's because corporations and bigger businesses and things like that have these sort of like holds on it all. And they don't care about the respective artist, right? Or the scientist or the author. And then people don't get what they like deserve, out of it. And then it becomes a disservice to everybody else as well. Like the general population. Cause now where there's really good information on scientific websites and stuff like that, they're not accessible, because of either a money wall or some sort of restriction, and then people don't get educated.
All right. I want to go over one thing before we go into studies. The Super Bowl.
Uh-oh.
What a great game, wasn't it?
Did you have any like piece of it? Were you going for a certain team? Were you hoping anything was going to happen?
I was hoping for a good game.
Okay.
Wanted the Eagles to win.
Okay.
They won.
All right.
But I turned it off. Fly, Eagles, fly. But I just wanted a good game, to be honest. And if the Eagles would have lost, I would have been mad either. Yeah. So I turned it off by the third quarter.
I think I stopped watching about maybe halfway through the fourth quarter. I started a little bit late. I think I started watching about halfway through the first quarter. And yeah, man, I think by the time that I had turned it off, it was 36 to, 10 or something like that. And I was like, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. And if it does, NFL's fucking rigged. Yeah. And it was funny too, because so I think the Kansas City Chiefs were the only team so far to go to the Super Bowl 3 times in a row, right? Is that true or am I wrong?
I can't remember. I think so.
Oh, okay. I might be wrong. And so I was like,
oh, not to go to the Super Bowl because the Bills did it in the 90s 4 times, but they just lost.
Oh, okay.
They would have been the first team to win 3 in a row.
Okay. Maybe that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, there's no way the NFL is going to let the Kansas City Chiefs lose. They're totally going to win. It's going to be a legendary thing. It's going to,
you got some hope at the beginning when that first call was against the Eagles.
I was like, it's just going to happen. I'm just going to watch it happen and just be like, all right, this is all totally rigged and scripted. But then they fucking smashed the hell out of them. And I was like, okay, maybe it isn't. So I don't know, man. Yeah.
And then the last thing I want to talk about is the great artistry of Kendrick Lamar.
Oh yeah.
He is calculated.
Yeah.
Literally, even I've learned things about his music.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a big fan of his, but he reminds me of an older artist of the way he writes, the way his words are, how calculated things are. And it had multiple meanings behind his halftime show.
The show, right? Yeah.
And I'm not going to say anything about all the little symbolism and stuff.
Yeah.
But as an artist,
yeah,
just impeccable.
A true artist in the sense,
yes,
right? Yeah. Very seldom, I think, going back to what we were talking about earlier now with music, I don't really see innovation, right? Or artistry anymore. There's no real artists making music anymore. It's just making a product. What makes money, right? Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at with capitalism. It's all about money. And
it's not about improvement or progress, right?
It's like when private equity bought Alamo Drafthouse and Alamo Drafthouse went down.
Boo, Alamo Drafthouse, boo.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, right? I know. Yeah, it fucking sucks.
How many times have private equity bought things and then taken it away?
Yeah.
And I think it leads to these things that have happened to the prices of eggs and prices of all these things.
No,
they
prices are down. They're down. They're down.
Oh,
they're going to be. Oh, look at that music comparison was pretty good, huh? It kind of ran us through this whole thing.
All right, first study, changing therapy practice to add higher intensity walking improves early stroke recovery. So by integrating 30 minutes a day of progressive walking exercises into standard stroke rehab, 30 to 60 minutes of physical therapy, 5 days a week, stroke patients had measurable improved quality of life and mobility at hospital discharge compared to a controlled group.
This is actually a really cool study. I have a client who had a stroke a few years ago, and he has, I think at this point, 20% feeling on his right side or 80% feeling. I think he's missing 20% of the feeling on the right side. And we still kind of deal with it a little bit as time has gone on, but I've seen improvement in him since the first time working with him, as opposed to, or to now, right? He's done a lot better. Beforehand, it was almost like, it was pretty weird, man.
No, I have someone who
right. You've done with it also. And I really do think that adding in resistance training or high intensity work in general, right, including probably walking, is so important to the recovery of that, because you've essentially lost all connection, right, to either one side or one limb or part or whatever it was, depending on how the damage was. And doing resistance training, walking, things like that, causes that adaptation, right? The genesis of new things to build. So this makes a lot of sense, man. It's really cool.
It just shows you how vital walking is.
Yeah.
As an entity, whether it's rehab,
it's the best exercise
weight
ever created,
loss, right? Stress relief, whatever it is. I think as an early trainer, I downplayed what walking does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm just like the biggest proponent.
Hell
just
yeah.
get walking.
Yeah.
Like today, after I finish with my last client, I'm going to come home and I'm going to go for a walk for 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And have my dinner and then go pick up my daughter. It's just like that 20, 30 minutes makes a huge difference. It like resets the body, resets the brain, resets the stress patterns that you've created throughout the day. And I think it's one of the most underrated exercises, even though it's something that we do inherently all the time to do over time. Like when I was in Mexico City and we walked everywhere, it almost made me feel better the whole time.
Yeah. Same concept when I was in England. We fucking walked hardcore, bro, everywhere. Yeah. I was like, I didn't know this was fucking expert level vacation, bro. Like we're walking everywhere, but it was cool. You felt good. You're always energetic, right? You're never like lethargic or like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like you just feel good all the time. And so, yeah, I think, like you said, I think we sometimes look at walking as not an exercise because of it's probably the most common thing that everybody does. And so you just don't see it that way, but it's probably the best exercise ever created.
All right, next study, moderate exercise keeps appetite at bay. A recent study has revealed moderate intensity exercise can significantly influence appetite-related hormones and perceptions in males with obesity.
I mean, going back to walking, right? If you were to maybe walk before having lunch at work, right, you may eat less or make a better decision. I tell a lot of my clients who have like sort of habitual eating tendencies where it's like, oh, after work, I get home and I have this snack and, you know, I do this and whatever. I'm like, break it up, do like 10 squats, 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups, you know, before like right after you walk in the door or something like that. Just break that habit a little bit. And it also by using exercise, you're immediately going to be like, oh, I should probably eat better, right? Or I should do this. I think it just changes something.
And sometimes allows the body to focus on something else and that craving goes away.
Right. Yeah. And we've talked about it too, right? Where it's just changing something in the routine is like you had a good example that I use a lot of times with my clients because I just find it really funny. But you would tell me about the client that had like the Grey's Anatomy night where he would like order a pizza and drink wine or something like that. And you told him to like record it instead and like watch it on a Thursday. And that was enough, right? It's still the same damn thing. You're probably sitting in the same place or anything, but it's just the fact that it's a different day, a different routine. Now that whole pattern is just changed. And I think that's a really cool example.
Yeah. All right. Question number 1 for our fitness questions. Can I get away with just taking group fitness classes or do I have to strength train?
Guess it depends on what you want.
What's your goal?
Yeah.
And how much actual good movement patterns are you creating long term
in the classes? Yeah, true. Because it depends on the type of class you're taking, et cetera, things like that. I mean, I think we both will always kind of be a proponent for strength training just in general. At least one day, maybe 2, right? Just for general health and muscle building and safety, right? Quality of life, et cetera, things like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking classes, or I don't even think there's anything wrong with taking classes as your main form of exercise if you find it exhilarating and exciting and it gets you active. But I think there's always a place for strength training in some way. I will say this though, I don't think classes are a switch for strength training, right? You can't change it. They're not interchangeable. They're 2 different things.
Usually cardio or endurance based is classes.
Yeah. And it's just not going to get you the same benefits as like a straight strength training sort of day or program.
You know what's wild to me? People, I saw this person and they were pushing the sled with a lot of weight, and I saw these other people, and I know this person really does strength training, and they're all probably pretty similar body weights. Maybe she was even a little bit less than the other 2, and she pushed the sled way easier than the other 2.
Hell yeah!
And that's just foundational strength training.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Question number 2. What is the main reason why someone could get injured? And you can only pick one reason.
I'll give you that 1, 2. The main reason why someone could get injured.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we know a lot of
go.
reasons,
You
right?
go.
So
Yeah.
my main reason I think people get injured is a load tolerance.
Mhm.
And so whatever angle you're in or wherever the item is, and so it goes back to me doing like behind the neck press with my client. What load can you take and how can I make this safer and then make you go up in load? I think that's the number one reason why people get injured is being in a range of motion and having the load tolerance for that range of motion.
Yeah, you use an example pretty often where you talk about like doing a sort of like a circular motion on a wall, right? And coming around. And, you know, you can turn that into a resistance training exercise. You add a 1 pound plate, right? You move it all around. We've had people when I was in PT who would, you know, rip their pec by reaching back behind to grab something from their kid, you know, while driving or whatever. And so I agree, man. I think the load tolerance might be probably the most like encompassing reason why someone would get, you know, in the same vein, I was going to say like lack of strength, which is essentially the same thing, right? Maybe lack of mobility, you know, but even then that kind of encompasses it as well. So I think that's got to be
I was even going to say like hypermobility, but even then it's controlling within that.
It all goes back
motion,
to
right?
load tolerance, right?
Tolerance.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 3. Why do you always talk about strength training versus hearing about cardio? Y'all are never talking about cardio at all.
Because what the fuck, man, gains.
You know what? I think because strength training is so complex and cardio is very simple. Cardio is just getting your heart rate up, getting your heart rate down. Well, it doesn't matter what exercise, it is what it is. Strength training is what is load, what is range of motion, what is sets, what is reps.
It's far more complex, right?
What do I want to do with those things outside of the gym? And so like you're adding all these other variables to the equation.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways, I guess, that you could talk about cardio endurance or like cardiorespiratory in a similar sense, right? But I think the reason that I tend to talk about it so much more often is because it just is way more applicable to the challenges of life, so to speak, at the moment in modern times, as opposed to cardiorespiratory endurance. Not that it's not important, right? Or that people shouldn't be doing it or that there's no benefit to it. But I think in the times now where we have like a food surplus, right? A more sedentary lifestyle, more people getting injured, right? Because of that, less time,
lack of bone density,
lack of bone density, right? Lack of testosterone, right? And hormone changes and things like that. There's just so many more benefits at the moment in time,
correct,
to strength training as opposed to cardiorespiratory training.
Because I could argue cardiorespiratory training early on, like the 70s, would have been much better.
Right, because more people had laborious jobs, right? They were more in the field. They were working all the time. They'd come home and probably
got
have
strong
to work.
hands, strong arms.
Yeah, they were doing that type of work on the daily.
Actually, I could argue in that time, cardio and endurance, cardio and yoga would have been better for those people versus strength training.
Fair enough. Yeah. Because I mean, I look at older population now, right? And it's like they're kind of stuck in positions or things like that, right? From years of work or whatever it was. So I think it's just that we're in a time where strength training is just more beneficial than cardiorespiratory endurance at the moment. So going back to like that first question too, I think if you got to focus on something, I would generally recommend focusing on strength training over cardiorespiratory endurance.
All right, guys, if y'all like what we're doing, you can share, like, subscribe. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and view us. Check us out on YouTube. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, leave a comment down below. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. We have free blogs, free guides, and programs for purchase. Email strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Until next time, guys, what? Peace out.